Hey, what's up, Fantasy Heads? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk, and I'm here to finish up the 20 football rules list that I started yesterday. I counted down 20 through 11, and we're gonna start with number 10 today. And this one's a really important one, especially for you guys that are drafting this weekend, which is a heavy draft weekend. Rule number 10: don't obsess over your draft position. First isn't always best, and last isn't always worst. So let's speak as if we're talking about a standard standard draft of 10 players playing, and the person with the number one pick, in a standard draft, and the person with the number 10 pick, there are advantages to both. Advantages to the first is obvious. You get the pick of the litter. You can get Adrian Peterson. That's generally the number one to go. And the disadvantage to that is you have to set the tone. And if you're not, and sometimes you want to get the luxury of being able to see what other people do first before you jump in. And I'm not saying that you do what other people do, but you're able to see what's happening, and then you're able to pounce and take advantage of mistakes or come through to make sure you don't make a mistake. If you have something like the 5th or 6th pick, which to me is prime, but 1 gives you a great advantage. And 10, though it's the last pick, it doesn't give you a disadvantage as bad as you would think. 1, because after 10, you come back around and get 11. So you're the first time player that's going to get 2 back-to-back players. And in the 10th pick this year, you can easily still get Calvin Johnson or easily still get Jimmy Graham. It's not all the time, but at the worst, you get Marshawn Lynch, Eddie Lacy, somebody like that. So 10th isn't bad. See, last year 10th was bad because a lot of people were wondering, oh, do I take Alfred Morris or do I take Trent Richardson? And Trent Richardson killed you last year if you took him in the 10th, with the 10th pick rather. And Alfred Morris, though he had a good fantasy season, he wasn't first round worthy last year. Not really, because of his pass catching is just so not there. But again, don't obsess over it. Maneuver it. It's, to me, my favorite position is anywhere between 5 and 7. Because you'll get the middle of the first and the middle of the second too, and it makes for the weight to be about the same. But don't worry about it. Standard drafts allow for everyone to have pretty much even teams when it's all said and done. Just make sure you're paying attention to what's still on the board and get the best value you can. Don't worry about the position. Rule number 9. It's better to be the jerk in the draft chat board than to listen to them. Don't get psyched out. For any of y'all that are brand new in draft rooms, there's a chat box at the bottom where people are often talking noise and talking junk back to each other, trying to rile people up, clowning people for making certain moves or this, that, or the other. And, I'm not going to lie, I do it too when I see something so crazy happen or so stupid. I'm like, seriously, I'll type something like that, this, that, or the other. And what it also does is it can shift the dynamic of the draft. That's why I said it's better to be the jerk than to listen to him. If you can say something in the chat room that'll make people do certain things that would help you, or not do certain things that would also help you, that's a strategy. That's building you some leeway by being that guy, kind of stirring things up with just subtle things because people pay attention. It happens. It just does. And if you make a bad move and someone comments on it, a lot of times it can get you riled up. But if you're gonna be the guy that talks junk, you don't have to be. Just definitely don't be the guy that pays too much attention to what people say. Because I've seen people get clowned in the draft, and next thing you know, they're going into auto draft because they've been too embarrassed or they're upset and they just leave the draft room. Don't be that. Don't let anyone psych you out of your game. You might make a dumb move. You might not do what you should have done or whatever have you. But bottom line is, try not to listen to people. And it's rather to be the guy provoking some change than to listen to it. Rule number 8. If you don't actively draft, don't join the league. Don't be the auto draft guy. I can't understand this for the life of me as long as I've been playing ESPN lobby leagues. ESPN lobby leagues are running 24/7 pretty much. If you select to get inside a league, you're there, and then these leagues populate up to 10, 12, or 8, however many players are on teams is going to be in this league. They populate during peak hours of the day. They populate in minutes, sometimes seconds. So that means these things fill up quickly. What I can't understand is if a draft is about to start at 10:50 p.m. and it filled up between 10:45 and 10:50, what happened to the people once the draft starts? Where are the people that just signed in to get going 5 minutes ago? And then what happens is you've got this draft that's got holes in it, about 3 auto draft guys in there and 7 active participants. Auto draft messes everything up. Auto draft messes up auctions, messes up standard drafts and everything. Plus, it's just not no fun, man. You know what I'm saying? They're going to obviously get the top person on the board. And besides that being an obvious problem, because it's like, oh man, if somebody was there, you never know who they would get. Nothing hurts worse than knowing when this comes back around to the auto draft guy, I know I can't get this guy that's up here, this next. Even if somebody else that was coming, somebody else that may have the next pick, say the auto drafts after the guy with the next pick, that guy with the next pick might pick somebody else besides the guy that's at the very top up for selection. That guy after that's going to automatically get that guy because it's auto draft. Auto draft's going to get the highest ranked guy, and that guy at the top, if real drafters are there, he may not take that guy. And nothing bothers me more than seeing players just get snatched off the board because they're in the auto draft position of being at the very top of the board. I mean, if you can't draft, don't join. Same as joining other leagues or whatever. Don't be that guy, man. Nothing aggravates us worse. Tip number 7. Know the current player universe. Know the current player universe. I'll be in drafts, and I'll never forget that I was in a draft a few years ago, and somebody drafts somebody who just retired. Seriously, I was in an IDP league, and one individual defensive player, I forgot who it was, somebody picked him up, and that guy had just retired the day before. That's somebody who's not paying attention to what's going on. Now, retirements is a outlier. That's not going to be regular or normally to happen. But what does happen oftentimes is players draft players that they didn't know were suspended. They didn't know were hurt for the year. They didn't know that just got hurt a few days ago, a few hours ago, whatever have you. They don't know that, this person got dropped from the depth chart. They didn't know that Andre Brown just got cut from the Houston Texans. Go look at some recent news on somebody's site, wherever you can, to find the newest updates on most popular fantasy players, all players if you can. Know the player universe so you're not stuck drafting someone you can't use. If you're drafting Josh Gordon, hopefully it's for upside and hopes that he's going to be playing before the full year is out, which he's expected to miss. But don't draft him because you didn't know any of this and you thinking he's going to be playing in week 1. Rule number 6. And this rule here, I've never heard from anyone else. This is something that I personally have found through years of playing this. The only thing bothers me more than people that join drafts and are not available there to draft is collusion. And collusion is just a fancy word for cheating in a fantasy league. There's one way that I pay attention to in every league that I join, especially if I don't know the players in it, like if it's a lobby league. If I join a lobby league and I see two different people in that league with the same last name, I'm out of there. Don't even think about getting in a league where there's two players with the same last name, because they're either brothers, whatever, brother and sister, whatever have you, father and son, father, daughter, whatever have you, and the odds are, I will put it at probably 10 to 1, that they're going to try to cheat somewhere along the line. I've seen it happen 2 straight years. 2 guys that had the same last name, what they'll do is they'll trade their entire bench for that other person with the same last name's entire starting lineup. So one team's crazy and the other team is weak. And that's just a pit against the entire league, and nobody can compete with that. That's cheating. That beats the spirit of the game. That beats the fun of the game. And anybody who does that, you suck. Middle finger for that. You know what I'm saying? So just a way to avoid it, because you can't stop you can't even stop 2 friends that's got different last names from cheating if they're going to try. You could call ESPN and have them stop it, which I've done. I have to do it some part of every year. That probably means I play in too many leagues, but every year I've got to do something to thwart collusion. But one quick way to avoid it is, if you're in a draft lobby, you see the last name more than once, get out of there. It's just pretty much going to be odds are that you may have a problem somewhere along the line. Rule number 5, never draft a kicker, any kicker, before the last 2 rounds of a draft. Not even Matt Prater, not even Gostkowski, nobody. It's not worth it. Their points, though they're suitable, and though sometimes they can absolutely win you a week, they're too inconsistent. One kicker will kick 30 points one day, well, let's not say 30, 20 points one day, and then the next week he'll get you 3 extra points and give you just 3 points. And that doesn't make that guy a bad kicker. That just means the team didn't get downfield enough or they were punching it in the end zone too much. They didn't get downfield enough for field goals to happen. It happens to the best teams. So kickers aren't worth the value that some people take them as. If somebody's going to draft a kicker in the 9th and 8th round because they really want to lock down Matt Prater, let them have it. Let them have it up until round 15. Let them have it, man, because you'll be able to get comparable, if not exact value, because kickers barely maintain. Let's say Prater was the best last year. Let's say Stephen Gostkowski was second last year, or whatever, vice versa. Odds are it'll be 2 other people that's first and second this year. So just remember that's pretty much the same as team defense, which we'll get to in a second. Rule number 4, and this is just something easy to remember to help you understand auctions better. In auctions, only nominate players that you'd only pay $1 for, and never bid on your own nominations. By nominating only a player that you pay $1 for, that ultimately leads to you never bidding on your own auction, unless it gets to the very end and you got money to spend and you know you nominate a player you truly want. But I'm talking about the first 80 picks or so, throw trash out there. And when I say trash, I'm saying players you know that you wouldn't put more than that $1 you nominated them for up. My rule, and it's just a few minutes ago speaking about them, kickers. I put a kicker up for nomination every time until I land one. After I land my kicker, I'm throwing up a good defense that ain't Seahawks, ain't Panthers, that I can land. And by that time, people are kind of peeping what I'm doing, and everybody's trying to hold money, so they'll let you have it for $1. That's what you want to do. And then after I've done all the kickers up until I land my one kicker, put up defenses up until I land my defense. After that, I'm throwing out flyers that I know I would have for $1. Like, I'll throw out, I don't know, Stephen Ridley, a player I know I don't want. I wouldn't want Stephen Ridley for $2, so I'll throw him out for $1. People are going to jump on top of that, and he'll go for like 5 and 6 depending on where it is. I'll throw out Danny Amendola, a player I know I don't want on my team for $1, but if worse came to worse, I'll keep him for $1. People are going to jump on that also, and the next thing you know, he'll go for $4 or $5 if it's late in the draft. Only throw out stuff that you are only willing to roster for $1. Never nominate. Don't nominate Adrian Peterson. Don't nominate Jamal Charles. Don't nominate Calvin. Bid for those. Don't nominate those. No one really ever gets that. But some do. I'll be in some drafts where the money's flowing and it's starting to get low on some sides. And then the big players start coming out. And they start going for pretty good deals. But if you nominate Adrian Peterson up front and you got the first nomination, Adrian Peterson's then he's gonna set the tone with a high $70 bid. Nominate players, nominate weak stuff, throw weak sauce out there, and then let it do what it does. Number 3, you can take the Seahawks D or the best ranked D of a year early, but don't take them single-digit round early. I see it all the time. Seahawks D goes in the 8th round, goes in the 9th round. That's far too early for them to go. They're a good defense, and they'll probably be the best defense, but they're not guaranteed to be the best defense. Hence why their value is questionable. And even if they are the best defense, they will have collective total points of being the best. They're still going to have lean weeks that cause you problems, and maybe even negative point weeks. That's the reason why defense will never be something I go overpay for, because even good defenses sometimes can give you negative points, and very few fantasy positions do that. Somebody's got to have a really, really, really bad game to give you negative points. But defenses, it happens a lot. Sometimes the defense is projected for negative points. No, very few players are. So you treat defense like you do kickers. Get them late and get the best you can, because you're probably going to drop them anyway to pick up another for your bye week. And if you don't drop them, if you hold them, you're going to drop some lean player that's on your team, pull up a defense to spell the defense that's on bye, and you're going to drop that defense. Defenses are expendable. Treat them like that. Rule number 2. And I said this in my other video about positioning and when you should draft, what you should take in terms of early in the first round or whatever have you. You don't always have to subscribe to picking a running back first in a draft. It's not always something you have to do. Even if you got the very first pick, you don't have to pick a running back first. Everything should be based off where you are positioned in the draft to pick, and most importantly, your scoring. If you're in a standard league and you got the number 1 pick, you should pick a running back. You should pick Adrian Peterson. But if you're in a 2-quarterback league and the scoring is 6 points per passing touchdown, you'd be crazy not to pick Peyton Manning. I mean, think about the rules that you're set up under. Think about the scoring. Think about your position in this, that, or the other. It's all about what you deem best. It's not a prescription that everybody from 1 through 10, all 10 of those people had to have gotten whatever running back they could get. There's going to be value in quarterback and even receiver that's better than the 10th or 9th best running back. So keep that in mind when you're drafting. This whole thing, I cannot stress enough, drafts is all about value first, more so than the position. And the number one rule of all these 20 rules, we didn't count it down to number one. Yeah, well, we need a drum roll for this one because I cannot stress this one enough. The number one rule in fantasy football: no day of the fantasy season is more important than draft day. Not the championship week if you make it to it, not the playoffs if you get to it, none of that. The only way you're going to get to the championship is doing well in the draft. The only way you're going to get to the playoffs is doing well in the draft. No day is more important than draft day. And let me tell you why. It's the only time of the entire season that you have 100% control of the outcome. You can't control whether you got the number 1 or the number 10th pick. That's going to be random. You can't control if you had the number 2 pick and somebody took Adrian Peterson and you wanted him. You can't control that. But when it comes down up to your whatever pick, that number 2 pick, you can pick from whoever is up there. And from that pick through picks your 16th pick, you have your choice of who's ever available. And you're drafting knowing what's out there right now. If you studied, if you know who's hurt, who's injured, and this, that, or the other, and you disregard them or you factor that into your picks, everything is 100% your control. You're knowing you're going to try to get 6 running backs, 6 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. You know this formula you've created. This is your formula you've created. You lose. It's like buying a new car. The day you take it off the lot, you lose. They said, what did they say? Nearly 50% of the car's value goes the moment you take it off the lot. Well, not 50%, but it loses a good amount of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. The moment that draft ends, your team is now at the peril of the real life players. It's at the peril of the NFL. It's at the peril of what these players are going to do as people, is what these players are going to do as players, is what these players are going to do however. You might have the number 1 pick. If that pick gets hurt, there's nothing you can do about it. You might have the number 1 pick, and if that pick gets suspended, there's nothing you can do about it. You might have the number 1 pick, and if that pick gets traded, and he's in a terrible position after that, there's nothing you can do about it. You control one time, and yes, you do control the lineups that you set during the week, but that's still based on common sense and just probability. The one day you control is the draft. Use that control. Take it personal. Take it real. That's why auto draft is crazy. That's why you don't mess around with leagues that you can't draft it, because it's all you. This is the one. Why wouldn't you want to have full control the one time you got it? So that's my best. That's to me the number 1 rule of fantasy is the draft day is not only is it the most important day, it's the most fun day. I'll find that my interest. I love fantasy football. But I'll find that my interest the day after the draft is almost like that new car deal. I've lost a heavy amount of percentage of my interest the moment I finish that draft. Drafting is what I enjoy more than anything. Seeing how I can look from 1 through 16 and see how I maneuvered this. How I, was able to see how other people were and play them, especially in auctions or whatever have you. That's why auctions are so much fun. Use draft day. It's what it's all about, man. It's what it's all about. You're picking an all-star team. You have control of the all-star team. Pick them. And just one honorable mention that I happened to type in when I got done with the list, and this is for advanced players. This is for players that play in IDP leagues, and IDP means individual defensive players. Well, no. We'll take this. This isn't about IDP. In particular in IDP. Honorable mention. Don't get caught up in popular names when you're doing this. In particularly in IDP, like in certain point systems in IDP leagues, you will think, oh man, ooh, we picking cornerbacks and this, that, and the other, and safety. We get to pick a defensive player. Oh, I'm going to get Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman is the worst player to ever pick in fantasy. Let me tell you why. Richard Sherman is the best cover corner in the NFL. There's a reason why he's the best cover corner in the NFL. And because he's the best cover corner in the NFL, guess what? Quarterbacks don't throw his way. That limits his opportunity to score points, to make tackles, to do pass defense. And he's basically interception dependent. He doesn't get you the points you need. If you're going to do, don't just pick Richard Sherman because he's popular. Don't pick Darrelle Revis because he's popular. Don't pick, Patrick Peterson because he's popular. Pick people that's going to be productive. Same as, and we'll take it out of IDP and put it back into the real world that most of y'all are familiar with. Maurice Jones-Drew. Don't get him early. Maurice Jones-Drew is pretty much on his way out. Darren McFadden, same team as Maurice Jones-Drew. When he has his moments, he's great, but his probability of being even a dependable player this year is slim. Arian Foster is another one when it comes to how early you want to draft him. You know his name, he's very popular. But just because he's got that name, I'd take Eddie Lacy over Arian Foster all day. I'd take I would rather have Zach Stacy, honestly. Yeah, I think I may take Arian because the potential for him to break out is so huge because he's pretty much all the Texans got in terms of running game. But he's such an injury risk. Be sure to not let names get you caught up. And that's pretty much that, Pick value. Certain players that don't nobody know, like Andre Ellington, stuff like that, are primed to break out. Pay attention to breakout candidates. Yeah, this one went really long. A lot of them are going long. I've been rambling on these because it's something I'm passionate about. But hopefully, these tips will help you some. So, good luck and happy drafting this weekend and for the duration of the pre-fantasy season. And we'll talk to you soon. All right. And also, subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, and ask any questions you want to ask. Follow me at Twitter at FFRealTalk. You can email me at ffheads@gmail.com. And until next time, we'll see you.